Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 45, featuring the top 5 weirdest characters. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse, and I am the host of the TrekRanks podcast. And since our last episode featured our top 5 wisest characters, and that one was actually extremely well received by listeners, so we decided to double down on this topic with a companion piece. And this week we're doing our top 5 weirdest characters. So back-to-back episodes of our wisest and our weirdest characters. And I'll start off, I just want to clarify, I was a little hesitant to actually do this topic because everyone's weird. And everyone's weird is someone else's normal, and vice versa. So the last thing we'd ever want to do is identify a character as weird that for sure someone else is going to think, hey, that character's totally normal. They're just like me. So in the end, like we do on every TrekRanks, this is going to be a celebration of the weird and the normal and everything in between, because that's what we do on Trek. But just know that every time we talk about something that's weird on this show, consider the word weird to be in air quotes. All right? Definitely going to be cool to hear what everyone's Prime Directive is on weird when we get into it, because I think we have a perfect guest for this topic on tonight's show. So first up, making her return to the show is Katharine Robinson, who was previously with us when we did our top 5 one-off romances. Welcome back, Katharine.
Thank you, Jim. It's amazing to be here.
All right. And you are in England?
I am joining you from the England sector. It is freezing cold today. We've had lows of 0 degrees. Oh,
that sounds just lovely. I know it's not that cold where our other guest is. He's a pretty cool fellow that we know pretty well from STLV. He lives in the Las Vegas quadrant and is a Patreon supporter of the Tricorder Transmissions. Just a great guy, Chris Tribuzio. I'm really excited to finally get you on the show, man. Chris, welcome.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
I am fired up to have you on. Okay, since we talked about weather, we don't usually do that on the show. How is it in Vegas right now?
Right about now, it's about 62. Still feels like 85. Sunny, no clouds.
Of course. I love it. All right, so Chris, we always do this for our first-time guests. I want to ask you a little bit about your Trek origin story, just kind of how you got into Trek. So how was it introduced to you?
Sure. I got into Trek later on in life, basically because when my Trek started, which was in the 80s when Next Generation started, I was into girls. So I kind of realized Trek later on in life, and I'm pretty glad I did, because I found Deep Space Nine to be one of my favorite series, because with the tone and everything that surrounded Deep Space Nine, a lot of the episodes and a lot of the story still resonates today, 25 years later. I'm also an Enterprise fan. I love prequels.
Awesome. So, and now I can't remember. Have you seen it all? I don't think we've ever talked about it.
I've seen all, but I think, and you'll be happy about this, I've seen all but the rest of the animated series. I only saw one episode of the animated series.
Nothing wrong with the animated series. I know I get the label of that, because I don't really count it here. So but we'll leave that for another episode. All right, let's jump into our quick TrekRanks recalibration. As regular listeners will know, general order number 1 here at the TrekRanks podcast is that we love Trek. We love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started, because literally my favorite thing to do is to talk about Star Trek, and that is why this podcast exists.
But what is that Vulcan motto? Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
And what is diversity? A celebration of differences.
And as T'Pol and Dr. Phlox just said, our mantra here at TrekRanks is no wrong answers. TrekRanks is just basically just a big old celebration of differences. And yeah, we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast, where we don't nitpick, we don't argue, we just celebrate the greatness of Trek.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a quick reminder that Discovery Season 1 spoilers are potentially in play. So just remember that if you're listening. And remember that we use episodes as a shorthand term, but the 13 films are always in play as well.
Open hailing frequencies. Hailing frequencies open. On viewer.
And if you would like to contact TrekRanks, the best way to do that is to find us on Twitter at TrekRanks or me directly at Enterprise Extra. You can also call and leave us a message at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. We would love to hear your picks via voicemail. You can also find us at TrekRanks.com on the World Wide Web. And for those of you enjoying all of our shows here on the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network, you can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/the-Tricorder-Transmissions. And all right, let's wrap it up. Let's check in with our guests. They can tell us how you guys can get a hold of them. Katharine, what's the best way for people to contact you?
Probably find me on Twitter is the easiest way. And you can find me on Twitter as The Sorceress.
Love that handle. And Chris, how about you?
You can also find me on Twitter at TrekFanLV, the T to F, L, and V are capital.
Love it. LV is in Las Vegas. And pretty much everybody's on Twitter here. That's always the contact info because I'm not really on Facebook. So. All right. So as we did in our last episode, this week we're basically going to combine the diagnostic cycle with our Prime Directive because I think it's kind of hard to talk about this topic without giving away how you're going to approach it and making your picks. So let's get into our Prime Directives now.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
So, Katharine, let's start with you. Tell us about a non-Star Trek character that you think of as weird. This is kind of the way we get into this topic to help frame your picks and give everybody some context on how you looked at it.
Yeah, so I found this quite hard to start with because I'd so been thinking about weird in the context of Star Trek. So I asked my partner for help this morning, and he immediately came up with a character, and I thought, yes, that is perfect. And that was Adrian Pimento from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, yeah, okay. I love this. That guy is weird. Just shouting out nonsense.
I know, right?
Yes. Perfect.
So, yeah, he really kind of fits in with my Prime Directive as well. So, yeah, I was chuffed to have thought of him. So
okay, that's perfect. And if people don't know who Adrian, it's Pimento, right?
Yeah.
Adrian Pimento is, I think, played by Jason Matsukas. I'm not really sure of his name, but he's a great character actor in a lot of shows. And he's just weird. He's just like shouting out the weirdest things, inappropriate at all times on the show. All right. And Chris, how about you? What? How did you approach this topic? Because I know it was tough for Katharine. I know it was tough for me to come up with a non-Trek weird character. So how about you?
It was definitely weird for me. I really didn't know where to go off of. I used characters that are they're like one-time characters in Trek, and the actors who played them that you had never thought. Oh yeah, okay. So that's it. So that's you. So you looked at limited appearances and maybe the actors and how they contributed to the weirdness. Yes,
that's quite different to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, and mine, I think, is different from probably both of yours. I knew this was going to be all across the map. I love it. So, I definitely struggled to come up with a weird non-Trek character, and so I did finally land on a few that I'm going to rattle off here really quick. But they don't really associate well to my final list because I found my final list becoming really visually weird. More than anything else. Mm-hmm. So I think you'll see that when you get to my picks that they don't necessarily match up well to these non-Trek characters that I'm about to rattle off here. So I'm going to list three, and they're very different, and they're just ones that I just brainstormed this morning. One is the baby from Eraserhead, and not that I went with horror picks. This one's actually semi-close to some of my picks here. But I did kind of go with characters that are less human than normal. And if you've never seen Eraserhead, I highly recommend you don't see it. I love David Lynch, and I love everything he's done. But once was more than enough for this movie, and it's been 30 years, and it's still with me. I try to forget it because it is a weird movie. Also, I thought Edward Scissorhands was a good, weird character that had kind of a fun attitude toward him. And I also have to say, I thought of, right before we went on the air, the Thermians from Galaxy Quest, not only because they have a weird alien form, but they're so awesomely weird when they're in human form. So I love those guys.
So what you said about the Thermions there sort of brings me back to my Prime Directive and what I was thinking, because I kept getting caught up in this notion, oh, that's a weird alien. And I kept thinking, well, actually, that fits into an episode of TrekRanks called Top 5 Strangest Alien Races, not weird characters. So I kept having to redirect myself. So I ended up looking up the dictionary definitions, and that said weird had an otherworldly quality and something that makes others uncomfortable. So that really has focused my list. I think for me it also means having a really unique outlook on life. So I'm imagining someone that makes other people say, who did I just meet? Is that a real person? So I think that's what my list is going to bring.
I love that. I actually looked up weird as well, and then I totally forgot. I had it in my notes, and then I didn't include it in my Prime Directive really. And yeah, it's funny you say that. So because mine is definitely going to lean more toward weirdest space aliens or creatures. It's a little bit of a mix. Yeah, I think this topic, maybe more than any one we've ever done, lends itself to definitions that are going to be all over the map. So let's jump into that now. Chris, anything to add on that? Are you feeling sufficiently weird for this show?
I actually feel weird about picking who I've picked, but I'll give it a go.
This is gonna be great. I love it. All right, let's get Third Roboticon here to tell us about the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
And just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our original TrekRanks 5 words and a hashtag summary to tease our pick. Then we'll reveal our all-over-the-map weirdest characters. And we'll also identify one episode that we think best personifies that character's weirdness. And at the end, we'll rattle off a few secondary system selections in case any of us have some picks that maybe just missed our list that we want to give a shout out to. And as always, if we hear any duplicates tonight, you'll know it when you hear the defiant torpedoes. Okay, Katharine, let's start with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 weirdest characters?
Okay, so 5 words are fantasy, photons, and force fields. My hashtag is lightbulb, and my character is Vic Fontaine. And the episode I've picked is His Way.
I love this pick because and I've said this a million times, I think I said it a couple weeks ago, this character should never have worked. It's so weird to have a sentient 60s crooner hologram being added in the middle of the DS9 in the midst of all these different storylines, and it totally works. It's totally weird. This is an inspired pick. I love it. Tell us why. Sorry.
Yeah. No. So I think he fits my definition in that he's more kind of erstwhile than otherworldly, but it certainly sets him apart. And like you say, it's just so weird having a 60s crooner inserted into these futuristic stories. And as far as people being a little bit uncomfortable about him, I had a rewatch of His Way just to kind of check myself. And, Miles is really quite almost disgusted that Julian has been taking advice from this light bulb. And
right.
Yeah, and when they're talking about how intuitive he is, and Miles is just like, yeah, he's too clever. He's quite offended by Vic's existence in the beginning, and so I think he is there making people uncomfortable, and he isn't the first hologram that we've met, or that even Bashir and O'Brien have met, that that knows he's a hologram. They've both encountered an EMH, so they know that holograms exist, who know that they're holograms. So it has to be more than that, doesn't it? It has to be more about his innate thickness. There's something so real about him that just, I think sets everyone a little bit on edge.
Yeah, that's a real clever way to look at it, and really smart pick. I kind of already said it. I love it, and he's definitely weird in terms of how he was placed into the series, and all of a sudden connecting with all these characters in an interesting way. And by the way, he would fit well on our top 5 wisest characters too. I think somebody. I know we got some feedback when people picked him.
Weird and wise, and wonderful.
Love it, Chris. What's your take on Vic Fontaine?
You're asking somewhat of a hometown boy for Vic Fontaine. I absolutely love this character. Shout out to John Kokorian, him and I, actually, he said that Vic is actually a character that relates to him. And I have to say, being a transplant from the East Coast, though you'd never know it until you've heard me talk, I actually identify with Vic Fontaine myself. Met the guy in person at STLV, and one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah, James Darren is an absolute legend. It's amazing when you look back at his career, the things he's done. A legendary part of Star Trek too. It's just weird in itself that James Darren is such a big, huge, memorable character that everybody loves. That's awesome. All right, Chris. So before you go, I also want to just give you a quick shout out and thanks, because you were a last minute substitute, something we don't usually do on TrekRanks, because TrekRanks requires way too much homework for everybody. So I know you were scrambling in the last 12 hours to come up with your list. I'm fired up to hear it, and fired up that you're here with us. So Chris, hit it. Who's your number 5 weird character?
All right, my number 5 pick, 5 words. Go-Go Star Trek view screen, my hashtag rocker gone sci-fi, and then gone for good. It's Jane Whelan of the Go-Go's in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home.
That is great. That is so great. So wait, this is The Voyage Home. She had a cameo. I love this pick. I want to hear why you picked it, and then make sure everyone knows exactly what you're talking about.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying before. My picks are basically people who you don't expect to be cast in a Star Trek show. Though, and I'm not spoiling anything, but though these two next 2 examples that I'll give is something I went off of, and that's Iggy Pop and Mick Fleetwood. So.
Oh, right. Yeah. Those are 2 good ones, too. So for people who don't know, Jane Whelan, who, oh, my God, I had such a crush on when I was in high school. I remember seeing her on the screen going, wait, that's Jane Whelan from the Go-Go's, is one of the Starfleet officers when the probe is approaching Earth, right?
Yes.
They're trying to hear from her, and the static is going. Oh, my God, I love that pick. Are you familiar with this at all, Katharine?
Well, now that you've said who she is, I'm like, yes, I know exactly who that is in Star Trek, but I hadn't put together that she was also, somebody else in, in the music world. Yeah.
That is an awesome, awesome deep cut and weird pick for somebody showing up in the middle of Trek. Now I'm starting to think, of some other ones, because I just thought of another weird one from a movie cameo. So
I'm so excited to know what the rest of Chris's picks are.
Yeah, this is awesome. All right, I am gonna jump in with my round 5 pick, and my 5 words in a hashtag. It's really 6 words. Good health, strong body, sound mind. Hashtag don't put your hands on your hips, and the character is the Tac Commander from Macrocosm Voyager Season 3, Episode 12. So one of the things I love about this character and this episode is that the first 3 or 4 minutes of the episode of Macrocosm is basically just Janeway and Neelix talking about how weird the Tac are. So they're literally going, what is with those guys? And I think Janeway uses a more diplomatic term of, she calls him unusual, which is a way nicer way to say it. But I love the cool makeup design with they had the ridge bone that extends from the nose to their chin in front of their mouths. And they clearly have one of the weirdest ways to communicate with these odd gestures and these weird movements. It's much more than a sign language. I think I had in my notes, Neelix described it as more than just a language. The gestures are ritualistic and superstitious, and that's just cool and weird. And they're really an effective alien in this episode. So whatever you do, do not put your hands on your hips in the presence of the tac-tac, because it is one of the most insulting things you can say to a tac-tac.
Good health, strong body, clear mind.
And you, your hospitality, your generosity, your patience. Many thanks. My colleague's behavior, our apologies.
Counsel, I assure you I intend to...
Please make her quiet.
Captain, please.
I understand.
Good health, strong body, clear mind.
And you. Your journey home short and safe.
Chris, what's your take on the tac-tac from Voyager?
Just the name alone, just the name alone is actually pretty weird in itself. And I can't imagine what other gestures would actually offend them other than hands on the hips, because it seems to me like that's a normal gesture.
Yeah, not to them apparently. But their normal is their head to their side and looking into the sky with their
right, exactly, and it kind of goes back to Roddenberry's vision of everybody's different, infinite diversity, infinite combinations, and how everybody's different and how everybody perceives differently what we think is normal.
Yep, love it. Katharine, how about you in the tac-tac?
Yeah, so weird. I only recently watched this on a big Trek watch through with my partner. It's his first time through, so we only recently got to this one, so it's fresher in my mind. And this guy, I remember thinking, he's there with, like, as you say, his head tilted to the side. I remember thinking, if I had to do that for any length of time, hold that tension in my body and everything, I would be in so much trouble. I would have to be going for physiotherapy and everything. I struggle so much with like shoulders and neck and everything. I'm like, I have to think about my posture a lot. So I was thinking, that could be a nightmare. Imagine having a week, conference or something on the tac-tac homeworld. You'd just be in agony.
Oh, God. He's like arching his back and like he's wiggling his fingers. Your journey home, short and safe.
And at the very end, when Janeway kind of hangs up on him after they've, not purified Voyager, and immediately her hands go to her hips. Yep.
And her hands are on her hips. It's so great. And she realizes it too. She rolls her eyes. Really, really well done. All right, let's move to round 4. Katharine, what's your number 4 weird character?
My 5 words are never cared to be ordinary and #holy rings. This is Roxana Troy, and the episode I've chosen is The Forsaken from Deep Space Nine Series 1.
Another great pick. And she is so weird. I love that we're all 3 taking different tacks here. This is awesome.
She's just bombastic and outrageous and kind of owns every room she walks into. And she certainly makes people uncomfortable, particularly men, I think. Picard and Odo, as well as a potential fiance, I think once. She's weirded them out on a number of occasions.
She definitely does. And even... you could say a nude wedding and or a someone playing a gong every time you put a piece of food in your mouth. Also weird.
Yeah, I think there's a confidence that goes along
right, a confidence
with weird. You have to be able to own it to be truly weird.
That is awesome. It's a great pick. She's not one that I would have ever thought of, but the truth is she's definitely different and she's weird. And in the best ways possible. All right, Chris, what's your take on Roxana Troy?
I would like to do a hashtag for Roxana. It would be #LoveIsWeird.
Yes.
All the times we've seen Roxana Troy, she's always taken by different people. Timothy, for one.
Yep.
And she always gravitates towards the weird, or towards something that she feels, well, maybe weird to us, but someone she feels can complete her. So that's a great pick.
Yeah, it's a really, really great point. In weird ways, she's always attracted to different people in different ways in many of her episodes. Love that pick. All right, Chris, who is your number 4 pick?
My number 4 pick, 5 words. It's all about the delivery. Hashtag you're an android and I'm annoyed. It's Joe Piscopo as the holographic comedian in the outrageous O'Kona.
Oh, that is so good. That's really, really a fun list you're putting together here. All right, why did you pick Joe?
Again, who's the guy that actually wanted Joe Piscopo on? Nothing against Joe Piscopo. I love him. Matter of fact, Jim, if you remember, we met him at STLV in the little mini mart before we went to the Tricorder Bash.
Yeah, I was there for that. That's right.
Yeah. And I barreled through you and some other Tricorder hosts just to get to him, just so I can give him a fist bump, because he is one of my all-time comic icons that I've grown up with from his days on SNL. So it's just one of those things where, there again, Trek takes you on a journey, no pun intended, to explore another part of humanity for Data. You know, all through TNG and all through the films of TNG, Data goes on this journey to find out what it is to be human, and comedy is part of being human. It's learning how to make people laugh, and that's part of life. You can't be serious all the time. You have to find the humor in a lot of things.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's extremely well said, and I know you're the king of the deadpan jokes. This thing is awesome because, again, I mean, and I remember when this episode aired the first time thinking, I mean, I probably literally thought, man, that's so weird. Joe Piscopo is in Star Trek as a comic. This is.
See, I don't know what's weirder about Joe. The fact that he had a mullet in the 80s.
Hey, don't be ripping mullets in there.
The fact that he had a mullet in the 80s, or just seeing him now is actually fantastic.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Shout out to Joe Piscopo. I know he doesn't listen, but I'll make sure he does.
I'm quite sure he does not listen. Katharine, what's your take on this pick?
Yes. I never would have thought of it, but oh my god, yeah. And watching it just, it surprises you every time. It's like a little like slap, isn't it? It's like, what's happening?
Yeah, it really does.
And I'm looking at it going, is this good? Is this bad? Is this amazing? Right. I don't even know.
It's so obtuse. And at the time, the first reaction is, oh, this is not good.
All I know is that I'm glad it happened.
Exactly. When you look back on it 30 years, I mean, I can't even imagine TNG without the outrageous. It is. In fact, they showed it at STLV to, a room of 2,000, 3,000 people when Joe Piscopo was speaking. And it was fantastic watching it with a group of people in that theater. That was awesome. Awesome pick, Chris. You were killing it. All right. My round 4 pick, to continue a little bit of a theme here. My 5 words in a hashtag, dark and creepy as the night. Hashtag, will you help us? And it is the Night Aliens from Voyager Season 5, Episode 1, Night, a classic Trek episode. These are actually the first ones I thought of when I hit on this topic as weird characters. They just always stood out to me, and they're only in it for a real short time. I mean, they're in it on their ships, flying around at night, but you always see the aliens really quickly. And if you don't remember them, they are these small, kind of brown, rippled skin. They have no clothes. It's an amazing makeup design by Michael Westmore. It's a full body makeup. And yes, Ethan Phillips once described them as looking like big turds, and he's not wrong. They totally do. But Voyager helps them when in their battle with the Malon, because they're poisoning their space with theta radiation. And I always connected with these characters, because first think they're the enemy, and then you kind of realize that they're just victims here, and they've been living there for 1 million years. And it's a really great conservation message in this episode, and I love it. And my hashtag is from one of the main lines, or only lines you hear from these creatures when their ship is beaming one of the creatures out of sickbay, and he just says, "Will you help us?" to Voyager. That always stuck with me. I love that episode.
Let's run a full bioscan.
We have lived here for millions of years, undisturbed, until the Malon came.
Captain, every one of them appears to be suffering from theta radiation exposure.
We tell them they are killing us. They won't listen. We try to stop them. They're too strong.
What about the vortex? Can you close it? Keep them out.
We don't know how. Your ship is powerful. Your people resourceful. We need your help.
Bridge to Captain. They're locking onto the alien in sickbay.
Lower the shields.
Will you help us?
Katharine, any thoughts on the creepy, dark aliens from Night?
I always struggle with this episode and getting it mixed up with the episode where they get kind of sucked into another void scenario.
Void.
And there's some Malon there in that one, I think, as well. But yeah, I'm talking nonsense, aren't I?
Well, there's no Malons. No, you're not talking nonsense. There's totally confusing, because in Night they call it, they say they're in a void, and then 3 seasons later there's an episode called The Void, which is an actual void. And there are similar aliens in both, and the Malon are not in the second void, but
okay, they are in the first void.
Yeah, but they're in the first one. So TrekRanks.
Okay, in short, I'm confused.
So these are the ones.
But yeah, this is the first appearance of the Malon, isn't it? When they're poisoning the home of these creatures who are weird.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And totally understandable that you would get those confused. Makes perfect sense.
All
right, okay.
Sorry.
All right, Chris, how about you on the Night aliens?
When I first saw it, I actually hated this episode, only because it scared the living bejesus out of me, because it's one of those horror ones that you don't get out. And like you said, Michael Westmore does an awesome job with the makeup. Yep. But it's great pick all around. It's one of those episodes where you sit there and you don't look at it, or you don't think about it till afterwards.
Yeah, it is one of those episodes that it really sneaks up on you. It's really high on my TrekRanks list. And like you said, it's not always enjoyable, because it's this dark, when the captain's depressed and hiding away, it's kind of tough. It's a really interesting, moody, different take, especially for a season opener. Very interesting episode that we've talked about many times on TrekRanks, because it's awesome. All right, let's go to the soup round. Katharine, what's your number 3 weirdest Trek character?
Okay, my 5 words are a passion for plastic dinosaurs, and my hashtag is often weird. I'm picking Dr. Noonien Soong.
Okay, he's totally weird. This is a great pick.
So,
and I was wondering where you're going with the plastic dinosaurs, but there's so many plastic dinosaurs now that I think about it.
I know. I watched Brothers today as a bit of research and thinking, is this going to be my episode? And yeah, he has so many plastic dinosaurs in his home, and I really love to think that he must have been working on some kind of animatronic Jurassic Park that he didn't get a chance to finish before his death. This is my new headcanon about Dr. Soong.
Makes perfect sense.
But, I mean, yeah, he's weird.
And he's definitely weird. I love it.
He compares himself to Michelangelo. He never felt comfortable living somewhere without a prearranged escape route. I mean, not most people don't think like that, do they?
No.
And yeah, just a weird guy.
That is inspired, and he's weird every time he shows up, which is more than a couple of times when he's making those interactive holograms. Chris, what's your take on Dr. Noonien Soon?
If you look at him at first glance, he's Billy Crystal's character from The Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah.
If you look at him like that. But kudos to Brent Spiner, who actually not toured, but actually appeared in some stand-up with Joe. And later on, it's how he got discovered, I believe, to do Night Court, where he did his first TV viewing, and he actually threw a voice out there. But kudos to the writers and for giving Brent Spiner that out to explore a range of different characters that he can do, and he does this one really well. Like Katharine said, he is weird, but you got to think that there is a percentage of the population out there that actually does do the rubberneck, always conspiracy, always someone's out to get me. So yeah, I think it's an awesome pick.
Yeah, agreed. I love it. And full disclosure, I always say this every time this comes up. The first time I saw this episode, I remember it was the late 80s or early 90s, and we didn't have the internet and all these other things. I had no idea that was Brent Spiner. None. They completely fooled me. And it was, I think, the second time I saw it on reruns where I went, wait a second. He's playing all three of these characters? So impressive. And I love that pick. Fantastic. All right, Chris, how about you? What's your round 3 soup round pick?
My soup round pick's going to be 5 words. Someday I'll make my trek. Hashtag Orville, here I come. It's Seth MacFarlane and his 2 appearances in Star Trek Enterprise.
Oh, fantastic pick. I'm a huge Seth MacFarlane fan. And so he was in he had a line in The Forgotten, right?
Yeah, he had one line in The Forgotten where I think it was Trip was asking him a question and he answered back to him. And I think the other appearance was just a walk-on.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he had one line, but maybe not. What was his? I'm trying to remember his character's name.
Ensign MacFarlane.
Was it? No.
Yes, or Crewman MacFarlane, one of the 2.
I thought they had a name for him. Okay, well, tell us about why you picked him. I think we know why. What the hell? Seth MacFarlane. Star Trek.
I mean, we learned later on that Seth was a big Star Trek fan, and TNG was his favorite series. It's just one of those things where, again, someone who is blown up now, and I mean blown up as in famous, you would never think to have a walk-on role. Nobody knew who Seth MacFarlane was back then.
Yeah, that's a great point. At that point, you didn't realize who it was. I remember I did know, but only just like, that's the creator of Family Guy. That's weird. Not knowing that he was a big Trekkie or anything.
Well, I just found on Memory Alpha, because I'm terrible for Googling during talking, that in an expansion pack of Star Trek customizable card game, there was a card for Seth's Enterprise character giving him the full name of Stuart Rivers.
Ensign Rivers. That was his name, yeah.
Ensign Rivers, yeah. I believe one of the episodes called him like Rivers and Strong.
Yeah.
I think was one of them.
Yeah, I do remember them calling him Ensign Rivers, yeah. Great. Well, this is a fantastic pick. I love Seth MacFarlane. I just think he is a genius and a really smart guy, and I love his love for Trek. And if you've ever seen, I can't remember what behind the scenes it was on. He hosted a writer's room on the TNG, maybe season 3 or season 4 Blu-ray, and it is genius. And he actually did I think he did a commentary as well on an episode or 2. So love that guy. Great pick, Chris. Awesome. All right, well, my number 3 pick will land with a thud because we just were talking about them and clarifying the night aliens. So my 5 words and a hashtag. Boop, boop, beep, boop, boop. Hashtag beep, boop, boop, boop. It is Phantome, one of the Void aliens from the great Voyager episode, The Void, which is really a very similar piece to Night, which was my earlier pick. And again, I thought of both these guys. I almost was going to combine them as one pick, but then that was a little bit too much of a cheat. So I kept them as separate back-to-back picks. I love the Void aliens. They are definitely weird in terms of, again, they have a kind of a cool full body makeup. They're wearing clothes, but it's a full body makeup similar to the night aliens. And I love the way they communicate with their beeps and boops that Seven gets them connected on. But also, I think one of the main reasons I picked these guys is the fact that they're native to the Void, this season 7 Void. And apparently they just live on these derelict ships and move from ship to ship because the doctor discovers they have this super large lung capacity and they can survive in oxygen-less environments. And I just think that's a cool alien design. I love the way they were represented here in the Void with their friendly demeanor and how curious they are. They're just kind of like almost like space kitties. I love these guys. So, Katharine, you got it all straight now?
Yeah. 100% straight. Yeah. Oh no, I love these guys, and yeah, they get such a bad rap, from the other ships in the Void, who are just so mean about them, and so
they're so mean.
They're obviously fantastic and really resourceful and creative, and yet all these people are reacting in such a horrible way.
That jerk calls him vermin. I hate that guy.
Ugh.
Chris, how about you and Fantome?
I gotta agree with Katharine. It's these people, this race gets a bad rap and how they're looked down upon. But it takes one person to translate to get what their meaning is so they can communicate a lot more clearly.
Yeah. And we love Seven for that. It's actually a really good plot point in this episode where Seven's kind of ripping the captain for being so militant on following the Federation credo and maybe sacrificing some of our resources to help other people when it could help us. And she's like, yeah, okay, well, you just did the exact same thing to the creature in sickbay. You offered him some of your food rations. How does that help you? And that was a really great point. It was a really great way to kind of connect the whole episode. So love the Void. So I have 3 Voyager episodes so far. All right. Let's go to round 2. Katharine, who's your number 2 weird character?
Okay. So my 5 words are, why did you do this? # because I can. And this is the alien from Persistence of Vision. He certainly weirds me out. He makes me real uncomfortable. And, as for his otherworldliness, well, they weren't even sure that he was there. So, he's definitely showing each character things that perhaps they don't want to look at, the thoughts that they keep pushing away. So he's definitely making everybody pretty uncomfortable. And I just love how this episode gives no explanation. I quite like that. I mean, there must be so much that doesn't get tied up in a neat bow when you're out exploring space. I think it's a pretty refreshing episode and a pretty weird alien.
I always get confused by this episode, if I'm being honest. It's one of those ones when I watch it, I kind of always like, wait, where are they going with this?
Yeah, you don't know what's real and what isn't. Because the ships...
Yeah, who's real, who's not? I always kind of lose track.
Yeah, the ships that appear around Voyager at the end, they then disappear when the alien disappears. So you think, was any of this happening? None of it makes sense.
I love that now I'm confused, but I do know that they're weird. So, Chris, how about you? Do you have a strong recollection of this episode?
I'd have to actually go back and watch it, but as you guys talk about it, they are weird. In that one instance, when they go away and everybody else goes away, it kind of makes you think, are they in cahoots with each other, or are they just hunters?
Yeah, now I'm even more confused. So, that's a great
And it's like, just the very fact that they found them out made them go away.
Right.
It's like, really? Was it that easy? You could have stayed and kept harassing us and got whatever it was you wanted out of us, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah, so I always think of them as Bothans in my head, but I think you're right that at the end, the Bothans disappear too, and no one knows what's happening. All right, I'm putting this one high on my rewatch list to get to the bottom of it. But I love it because that is a weird episode, and especially the stuff where Kess is like has all the
that weird like stuff all over her. And
her face is her face. That was a candidate for my goriest moments on Trek. That was unpleasant with all the pus and everything on her face. So. Okay, let's go to Chris's number 2 pick.
My number 2 pick, 5 words, Disney's Megamind in the 1960s. Hashtag, my childhood would have been screwed. It's Baylock, the alien appearance on the view screen in Star Trek TOS's The Corbinite Maneuver.
Yes. We got a Howard pick. We love that. Wait, so are you technically picking the scary monster or Baylock the baby?
No, now that I look at it, can I do the 2 in 1?
Of course.
Because you can't have one without the other.
Exactly.
Now that I think about it. I mean, the alien at first, as he appears like some tough guy, and it's just, that would, if I was growing up in the 60s, that would actually have me pooping in my Huggies. And then when it comes to the baby, and the baby's talking, the baby's like 6 months old, and he's like, hey, come here, have some Tranya. It's like, what? Kind of reminds me of the cartoon, the Warner Brothers cartoon with Babyface.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. I never thought of that, but it is similar.
Yeah.
Well, Clint Howard is such a Star Trek legend. Been through so many series and cool appearances. I love this pick. I love thinking about the fact that when you say that about his voice, actually, it almost takes 3 elements to bring the character all the way around. You have the puppet, you have Clint Howard as the baby, and I can't remember who the voiceover, but there's an adult that does the voice for the baby, which makes it even creepier. Really.
Commander, that puppet, my alter ego, so to speak. In your culture, he would be Mr. Hyde to my Jekyll. You must admit he's effective. You would never have been frightened by me. And I thought my distress signal quite clever. It was a pleasure testing you.
Testing us? I see.
I had to discover your real intentions.
But you probed our memory banks.
Your records could have been a deception on your part.
And your crew?
I have no crew, Doctor. I run everything.
That is such a great weird pick. And Katharine, what's your take on Baylock?
I mean, this is one of my favorite episodes of TOS, and Baylock is just the best. And I love the attention to detail at the end when they visit him and everyone has to stoop through the doorways and the ceiling is all low, and I just think, I'm just sat here thinking, these weird characters are just waging war on my posture.
Yeah, that's
weird random thought, but great pick.
All right, we'll go to my round 2 pick, and I think someone had to go there. We'll see if anybody else does, but my 5 words in a hashtag, and you've heard this many times on TrekRanks. Do not light that candle. Hashtag anaphasic energy. It is the sex ghost Ronan from Sub Rosa. Because this is just a weird character. I didn't want to go here, but come on. Ronan is literally a space sex ghost living in a candle for 500 years with the Howard women moving from planet to planet. And there's really just nothing weirder than this. And the fact that it took until Beverly to finally put an end to this anaphasic energy creature, thankfully, because he's a creep. This guy is a creep, and he's weird, and the whole concept is weird. And let's not talk about it anymore. Katharine, what's your take on Ronan the sex?
I mean, not only is he weird, but he lives in space Scotland, which is just the best thing.
That's right. And he lives in space Scotland. Even more weird.
Yeah, and we get Zombie Nana at the end, and that whole episode. So weird.
Zombie,
Yeah.
Oh, we're bringing
Who thought that up? I just want to send them a big basket.
I always laugh about this because this episode was written by Brandon Braga, my favorite Trek scribe, and directed by Jonathan Frakes. I mean, what could go wrong? Well, apparently everything.
Although I think, if I was ranking my favorite TNG episodes, it might well be up there just because it's so much fun. It's always a laugh.
It's number 173 on TrekRanks. But hey, to each his own. It's hilarious. And Chris, let's end this. What do you got? Something quick on
something quick. I mean, I think this is Brandon Braga's first trip to his love for Outer Limits, or maybe even Twilight Zone for that matter.
Yeah.
But I can never look at a candle in church or outside of church the same way again, because I will always have the Jim Moorhouse impression of "Did I light the candle?" and yeah,
that terrible impersonation of that space Scottish guy.
Like I tried to tell your grandmother, the house is haunted.
Haunted?
You believe what you want, lass. Just dinna light that candle.
Why not?
It'll bring the ghost. It's his home. Oh, he's out now, wandering across the land, angry up and driven out. That's why he's bringing the storms.
Oh, I think your imagination is...
Think what you want. See what you want. Just do as I say. Dinna light that candle, and dinna go to that house, or before you know it, they'll be burying another Howard in this cemetery.
Well, let's move on to our round one. Fired up for this. Katharine, who's your number one weird character?
Oh, I love this character, and I knew he would be my number one from the moment you said top 5 weird characters. I was like, yes, I know who my number one is. My 5 words are, do you want to die? Hashtag forward to death. This is Dr. Elias Geiger from In the Cards, Deep Space Nine, Season 5.
Oh my God, genius. Absolutely genius.
He is the fine line between genius and madness, isn't he?
For sure.
I often think about the soulless minions of orthodoxy.
Yep.
And I aim never to become one or succumb to them. Everything about him is odd, from his work to the way that he talks. His obsession with immortality feels like it's kind of alienated him from everyone else in his life. I get the impression that he kind of goes from one place to another before being moved on, having long ago left behind his friendships and familial connections and stuff. He seems like a real loner. I love how kind of Nog and Jake react to him. It starts out, they're almost buying it. When Nog says, I'd never thought of it that way. When Geiger's explaining about cellular boredom, but then they quickly agree that he's crazy.
Let me ask you both a simple question. Do you want to die?
No. Not really.
Of course you don't, so why should you? Why should any of us end up as putrefying corpses in wooden boxes stuck in the ground? Or vaporized into subatomic particles and vented into the cosmos like a bad case of gas? No reason that I can think of.
It's such a great episode, and the performance is fantastic. And if you didn't know this, the actor is named Brian Markinson, and I remember it because he played Durst in Voyager, the guy who had his face ripped off by the phage aliens, and he was a recurring character on Voyager. So really good actor, and that is an inspired he is so weird.
He just has this absolute belief in what he's doing. He has no qualms in launching into his sales pitch when faced with, Bayoon and his Jem'Hadar. Do you want to die?
So true. Absolute belief. Love it. Chris, what's your take on Dr. Elias Geiger from In the Cards?
What's to say? This is just one of those episodes, and great pick. He is definitely creepy for sure.
So creepy. Fantastic. All right, Chris, who is your number one weirdest character?
Okay, I gotta loosen up for this one. All right, my 5 words: It's all in my head. Hashtag Howling Mad Murdoch in the 24th century. It's Reginald Barkley from the episode The Nth Degree.
Oh, that is another great pick because he's already weird, but he's like hyper weird in the Nth Degree.
He's hyper weird, and I just love the special effects where he's sitting in the chair and he's got the disco lights from Studio 54 in New York City in the 1970s all dancing around them. It kind of gives you that, and of course this movie came later, but the Jim Carrey feel in Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Where he had the lightning strobe or the light strobes and stuff like that. And Barkley's a strange character to begin with because of his introvertedness. Not that I don't want to offend anyone.
Of course, yeah.
By saying that, but it's strange in a way that, he always kept to himself and he imagined his friends through a holodeck. But when you put it to the nth degree where his brain is processed 1,000,000 times more than the average human, it makes it so weird. And we all have friends that we think are know-it-alls. And to have this guy palling around with you wherever you go has got to be somewhat annoying at the same time.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. He's already gloriously kind of obtuse compared to everyone else around him, and then in the nth degree, it just gets zapped to another level. Another potential pick and character from our Wisest as well. He was, I know we got at least some feedback from people who picked him because obviously he became so smart in the nth degree. Katharine, what's your take on Barkley in the nth degree?
Yeah, it's especially in that episode. I think it's really interesting how uncomfortable it makes people when someone who isn't usually confident going suddenly is, and just how uncomfortable that makes everyone. I think that's really intriguing. So, just how unlikely it seems that Barkley is suddenly going to take over everything.
Super fun. All right. Awesome picks all around. I will finish it with my number one pick. And this one's, I'll just get to it. My 5 words and a hashtag. Oh, I just realized my 5 words and a hashtag spoils it. Oh, who cares? 5 words and a hashtag. Dax ain't going anywhere, dude. Hashtag, there's a worm in her belly, and my character is the Dax symbiont. And my episode is actually Invasive Procedures from DS9, the episode where Varad steals the Dax symbiont and tries to get away and kill Jadzia, sadly. But, I mean, there were so many options for episodes when we were talking about Dax, but I chose this one because you really get the full Dax symbiote experience in this episode where, and for why I picked it, or this character, because, I mean, we love the glorious weirdness that is the Trill and the Trill symbionts and how they move from host to host, and they're changing them and they're taking their qualities and passing them on to the next host. I really love that concept from Deep Space Nine. It's a really original kind of creature design element. And I just thought, but I think they're super weird, right? Because they're, Varad is this sniveling little loser. And then once Dax is joined with them, everything changes for him and he's more confident, he's intelligent. And then when they put the symbiont back into Jadzia, Varad's now a part of her. So now she remembers everything about him. And I love that continuity and the way it plays out through the whole series with the Trill throughout Trek. And yeah, this is one of the first characters I thought of when we brought up this topic. And oddly, I was really close, and I kind of wish I'd done it now, to picking Dax on my top 5 Wisest characters too, because that would have been the perfect double dip to have Dax on both lists. But Dax is on my weird character list. So, Chris, what's your take on the Dax symbiote?
Again, kudos to DS9 and the writers to put in a character with 1,000 lifetimes. It's got to have more than 1,000 points of view, and to put it all into one person for it to be shared. It's a great pick. I enjoyed it. I would have never thought about it. And you definitely went on the molecular level for this, and I enjoyed it. There's no wrong answers. This is actually a right one.
For me, they they personify weirds, but not only the fact that they're a sentient slug that kind of runs the society, but the way they transfer forward with all the lifetime of memories. I love it. Katharine, how about you and Dax?
Yeah, you're making me think about all sorts of things like the continuity, putting a symbiont into the wrong person and the impact that can have, not just through rejection and all that kind of stuff, but thinking about Cisco's friendship with Dax spanning 3 incarnations, but, was never going to get on board with Barad. We are not friends anymore. You're not the Dax who's my friend, kind of.
Yeah, that's a great.
And I think we see that so much when it's Esri, and you kind of know that, she's fine. She's she's gonna get there because she's obviously the right person to have the Dax symbiont because, well, she's friends with Ben, so it's all gonna be fine.
Yeah, I didn't even bring up Esri. Great point, because in her oddball personality and what she brings to it too.
Yeah, how you can be the same but different is wonderful. I love that.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the reasons I like Doctor Who so much as well.
Yep. All right. Well, awesome picks, you guys. I mean, I love how all 3 of us were on different tracks. I don't think that's ever happened in quite this way on TrekRanks. So let's run through a few secondary systems picks. If you've got any extras, Katharine.
Yeah, I had loads for this. I kind of considered Garrick, Malcolm Reed, Cybok, Guinan.
Hold on, Malcolm Reed is definitely a great weird pick. He is,
for somebody who we know so little about, to be able to say that he's weird, anyway.
Yeah.
Right. I suppose I also considered Moogie and the Traveller, and perhaps even the EMH2.
All good picks. I love it. That's fantastic. Chris, any extras on your list? Any secondary systems?
I did have extras. And my 5 words and a hashtag actually do this here. I had the famed director Bryan Singer in Star Trek Nemesis. My 5 words and my hashtag were absolutely fantastic. And
oh no, I'm not going to spoil it. You go.
No, my 5 words for Bryan Singer were blink and you miss it, and hashtag Banff like Marvel's Nightcrawler. Basically, because he was in it
into space.
Yeah, because he was in it for 2 seconds. And it's, and my second pick, or my secondary systems pick, was Kelsey Grammer from Cause and Effect. 5 words was I wish Norm was my XO, and hashtag Frasier's gone sci-fi.
That's perfect for your list. You could have also had Christian Slater.
I thought about that too.
Yeah,
I had that one. But that was also a pick. I just never wrote him down.
The one I was thinking of when you said Jane Whelan, because he's kind of in a similar. I think he was in the motion picture. Was VJ Armitage, a famous Indian tennis player from the 70s and 80s, who I knew as I was a big sports fan.
Yeah.
Watching the movie, I went, that's VJ Armitage up there. What is going on with that? I can't remember if it was a motion picture or if it was Star Trek 4 or 3. Maybe Star Trek 3. I don't know.
There was also I believe, someone of foreign royalty that was on Voyager.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. No, it's the Prince of Jordan, who's now the King of Jordan.
Yes. Yeah, he was on there too. Yeah. He didn't make my list, though. I just thought, considering my humor and what I had written down, that these 2 were just ones that would stand out.
I mean, by the way, another one from Voyager is Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine.
Yes, yeah.
There's a lot of good cameos like that. All right, I had just a few. I'll just rattle off that were just all kind of weird. I had Geordi in Identity Crisis turning into a blue lizard. I didn't have it, but somebody mentioned it last week when we teased this pick, was Threshold Tom Paris. That is definitely weird. And then I had Keenser as well, because I just love his eyes, and he's got acidic snot. So that's pretty weird. And my last one, just a special shout out to Morn, because Morn is weird. For all the reasons we love Morn. All right, I love this topic. Great conversation, guys. It's time to wind down now and to move into our weekly regeneration cycle.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Katharine, let's start with you. Break down your 5 weird characters.
Okay, my number 5 was Vic Fontaine, and the episode I chose was His Way from Deep Space Nine, Season 6. My number 4 was Loxana Troy, and the episode I chose was The Forsaken from Deep Space Nine, Season 1. My number 3 was Dr. Noonien Soon, and the episode I chose was Brothers from TNG. My number 2 pick was the alien from Persistence of Vision. He may or may not be a Bothan. And the episode is Persistence of Vision from Voyager Season 2. And number 1 was Dr. Elias Geiger in the episode In the Cards from Deep Space Nine Season 5.
Oh, fantastic pick. So you had 3 from Deep Space Nine and 1 each from TNG and Voyager. Great list. Chris, how about you? Break down your picks.
Sure. My number 5 pick was the famed musician Jane Whelan from Star Trek IV. My number 4 pick was the famed comedian, or is the famed comedian, Joe Piscopo from TNG's The Outrageous Okona. My number 3 pick was the famed creator of Family Guy and the Orville, Mr. Seth MacFarlane, from both of his appearances on Star Trek Enterprise. Number 2 was Baylock, both the alien and the baby, from TOS's The Corbinite Maneuver. And my number 1 pick was Mr. Reginald Barkley from the TNG episode The Nth Degree.
Fantastic. So you had 2 from TOS, 2 from TNG, and representing with Enterprise. Love that. And my top 5 were the number 5 Tac Commander from Macrocosm on Voyager. I had the aliens from Night on Voyager as my number 4 pick. Fantome from the episode The Void on Voyager. My number 2 pick was Ronan the Sex Ghost from Sub Rosa on TNG. My number 1 pick is the Dax Symbiont from DS9's Invasive Procedures. And if we break down our stats for this, it's pretty cool, actually. We have no duplicates, which is always a rarity and really cool because we are all so different on our Prime Directives. We spread it around pretty good. There's no Kelvin timeline or Discovery mentions. We did have 1 from Enterprise, 2 from TOS, and then I don't think this has ever happened. 4 each from TNG, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. So we were really spreading the wealth there in a concentrated way with TNG, Deep Space Nine. Love breaking down those numbers. And as we do every week at this time, we've once again entered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
On this week's temporal causality loop, we're jumping back just 1 episode to our companion show with our top 5 wisest characters. We got a ton of great feedback on that. So many people had so many great picks. So first up, we had at NerdyGal33, and she picked Martok and the Bajoran Prophets on her list, and I loved those are two great deep cut picks. We had Kyle Pak on a lot of lists, but I like the Bajoran Prophets being on there. And then our friend Ross, who is at Star Trek 1701 with no vowels, he had one of my favorite picks, Amanda Grayson from both the Prime and Kelvin timelines. Love me some Amanda Grayson. At Lee _Nostromo on Twitter had Gorkin and Lily Sloan. So 2 picks from the films, fantastic, wise characters. And then Nina, who is at Freckle Master, picked one of my favorite characters, John Doe from Transfigurations, who is totally wise, and I love that pick. All right, and then we had 3 different people voted for Naomi Wildman, which I love, including Robert, Lord Commander of the Pacers, at Pacer Commander. He always picks Naomi on his list whenever he can. And also Emily Jordan, who's at Miss Emily Jordan. And then we had another Naomi pick was from Joshua Zeller at Madcap of Science. He had a wise beyond their years list, which was Wesley Crusher at number 5, Jake Sisko at 4, Guinan as a child from Rascals, Baylock, who got featured here, and then his number 1 was Naomi Wild. So all great picks. All right, just one more here. It was a pretty clever list from our friend who's been on the show, Adam Huno. He sent in, he kind of merged these 2 topics and picked his top 5 wise-ass characters. So he had Vin from Past Tense, the security guard, Paul Stamets from Discovery, Krakow from TOS's Piece of the Action, Q, and his number 1 wise-ass character is perfect. It's Odo. So pretty brilliant list there from Adam. All right, love all those picks, and as always, more than enough to get us out of this week's Temporal Causality Loop. So thanks again to everyone for all their feedback. Definitely keep those lists coming to me at TrekRanks so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you, so put your own list together of top 5 weirdest characters and either email us or we'd love to hear from you directly. You can call us at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are continuing our underrated series. We've already done TOS, so this time we're doing our top 5 Enterprise underrated. And so for that show, we categorize things a little different. For each round, we don't just do like 5 underrated episodes. We do a round each for production design, underrated actor, underrated character, and of course, underrated episodes. You can literally pick anything you want. So, Katharine and Chris, if you guys could highlight one single thing about Enterprise or an episode, something that you think is underrated, what would you have off the top of your head? Katharine, anything?
Oh, I think something's occurring to me. I think the last time I was on TrekRanks, I talked about the episode Rogue Planet.
Oh, yeah.
I think lots of people don't remember that episode. I like it, so I think it's an underrated episode.
I love it. And a lot of people do not like that episode. I'm with you. I like that episode as well. That's a great underrated pick. How about you, Chris? Anything for underrated on Enterprise?
The most underrated actor would be the weapons guy from the episode Awakening.
No. He did get a nod in. He did get a nod.
The most underrated actor of all time.
All right. Fantastic. That is definitely not true, but I love it. Great pick. All right. Awesome job, you guys. That was just way too much fun. So thanks to Katharine Robinson and Chris Tribuzio for joining us, especially Chris on short notice. Really appreciate you putting that all together. I hope you guys had fun.
Thank you very much, Jim. I hope to be on future episodes.
For sure.
Me too. Best homework ever.
I love it. And it's always comprehensive. All right. Thanks again, everyone, for engaging with us here on episode 45 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
It's all a little weird.
Mr. Kim, we're Starfleet officers. Weird is part of the job.
Hi there, thanks again for listening. If you're cruising the galaxy looking for even more Trek talk, why not visit our good friends Bill and Dan over at TrekGeeks.com? They've got a great podcast that covers a wide range of Star Trek topics, so you're sure to find something you'll love. And if you're in the mood for some awesome tunes, then you really need to head over to 5yearmission.net. The guys are writing a song for every episode of the original series, and each one is absolutely brilliant. So that's trekgeeks.com and 5yearmission.net. Check them out today.